One, two, three. Boom. Hi, welcome to Control Talk Now, your smart buildings video cast and podcast for the week ending March 21st, 2021. This is episode 394, where we talk about smart building controls, HVAC controls, and pretty much whatever else we want to do. And I'm joined by your host and mine, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only control man from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Irish fighting Kenny Smyers. And Kenny, the lines are lit up. They want to know what you did for St. Paddy's Day.
Unfortunately, I didn't do anything. It was a work day, and there was very little activity. There's a pretend parade, and I guess some people did, some disjointed efforts to bring the St. Paddy's Day alive. But it was
so they had a Zoom parade.
Something weird. It's like, oh, okay, I'll pass on that. But I found out I took the Ancestry.com and I did them both because I was just curious.
Dude, all right, what is your orange, man? I got to hear about this.
Scotch Irish. I'm like
I knew the Irish part,
and
the Scotch makes sense too because you drink so much.
I'll strike that from the record. I can neither confirm nor deny such truth to that statement. But I was shocked because my family's, we go back in the German town real close to where I met my wife and where she was from. So it's kind of ironic that, but on that given day, I was a lot more Scottish DNA than German, I suppose. But
I don't think that stuff works at all because mine came back and said I was from Kenya. Go figure, man. I think that's all a scam, man. I think stick with your heritage.
No, my son-in-law works for Lumina, and they make those machines, and they're quite accurate. Very good.
I need to know about my background then. I think there might be a mistake on it. Yeah, on my slice. But dude, not a lot going on in controls. I mean, things are kind of status quo. It seems like the economy's getting back on track again. It seems like, we're going to, be seeing more retrofit stuff coming along. The construction, at least down where we're at, seems to have slowed down. We kind of knew that was going to happen.
Right.
How are you seeing things up your way?
Well, it's service work is picking up in the areas where you'd expect it to. The indoor air quality thing is just taking an amazing stride to people really want to know where they're at. Pennsylvania went to 75% reopening April 4th, but you have to have your building, you have to comply with the requirements. And again, they're tied to fresh air, ventilation, filtration, sanitation, air purification. So, I mean, it's again, we're gonna have to pivot as an industry into those areas of need versus some of the more loftier integration issues and stuff like that. But
ladies and gentlemen,
new construction around here.
Yeah, you just have no idea how good Kenny Smyers is. I mean, he came up with a perfect segue for our first guest when he said, yeah, you got to know. And how do you know? And our guests this week, Kenny, they are the people that are going to tell you how to know in an easy way. They're going to give you the information you need. So without further ado, let's just hop right into this interview because I am so excited to talk to these two ladies.
Sounds good.
Kenny Smyers, man, so excited. An old friend and a new friend are all teed up and ready to go as our guests this week. How about introducing them?
Eric, I'd love to. We have Gina Elliott, Chief Strategy Officer, and Rachel Kennedy, Digital Solutions Engineer from Switch Automation. Switch Automation is coming to the forefront. If you want scalable, open, and secure solutions, take a look at Switch Automation. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, guys, or girls, I should say. Gina, last we saw you were at Easy.io and Johnson Controls. And where are you now? And why are you with Switch? What's going on?
Oh, gosh. So let's see. I've been with Switch since December 1st, right? I've known Switch, for years. Actually, our paths have crossed here and there. And then one day I would happen to be on LinkedIn and Deb and I connected. Deb Noller, she is located in Singapore. She is our CEO. And we kind of connected on LinkedIn. We got caught up a little bit. We started just talking about things. She's like, I'm looking for someone to, to kind of help lead Switch strategy, do a little bit of a pivot here. And I was like, okay, let's talk. Because, that's my thing, strategy. Anything that's emerging, anything that's changing, anything new, that just kind of gets me a little bit excited.
Oh, hey, Kenny, the thing about Gina is, man, you give her a seed and she'll grow you an orchard. So, right? I mean, so watch out, Switch is on the move. So Gina, for our audience who might not know, tell us more about Switch Automation, what you guys do.
Okay, so Switch's been around for probably about 10 years. And it started off as more in the analytics, but it has kind of grown into what I would say is a full data aggregation platform. So Switch is able to be that agnostic platform that you need to bring in data from multiple points, whether it be the BMS, HVAC, low voltage systems, data upload, just about everything. So where it differentiates itself is really in its capacity to bring in multiple data sets. And then on top of that, you kind of build what workspaces, dashboards, graphics, or user interface that you need, whether it be to control or energy management or, access control, CCTV, but it's a plethora of things that you can do with it.
Does it kind of just lay over the top of my existing automation system or my existing systems in the building?
Yes. So if you have multiple buildings, what you would use Switch for is to bring all of those multiple buildings into that one platform. Yes. Very agnostic. Data sets, any data sets, APIs, drivers. We have built a large assortment of those as well.
Well, Gina, it sounds interesting. So just to give our viewers some stable data, as Eric always says, who are your, I don't say your competitors, but who else is out there so that your team, you're in this new market? You have Acrocore, Logical Buildings, Comfy, Sensor. I mean, put us into the right positioning of where Switch Automation falls into the market.
Oh gosh, that's a good question. That's something we ask ourselves all the time too. Position in the market. I would say just about anybody that's looking for kind of an integrated building management system. Who are some of our competitors, or I guess there are a few. I mean, this is kind of an emerging market, I think, in the sense of looking at data aggregation, normalization, standardization of the data, being that type of platform.
Well, what I meant is, like, did you do like governments, municipalities, commercial real estate?
Oh, okay, yeah. So sorry. So traditionally, Switch has gone to enterprise customers. So think property management, owner operator type things. So that's traditionally the way that Switch has gone to market. We also do have partners as well, and that is actually something we're going to be exploring. We also do have OEM customers.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Well, listen, I want to find a little bit about Rachel here before we get too far down this path. Rachel, how did you wind up at Switch, and how did you wind up in the industry? Tell us a little bit of your story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I came from a mechanical engineering or an architectural engineering background with mechanical focus. And ended up in the consulting side of smart buildings. And I loved being part of that strategy, building and working with clients, but it always kind of felt like I was leaving it off and didn't actually get to see anything through. So I wanted to come to the implementation side so that I could be part of that deployment of the strategy, that ongoing value. And Switch happened to be one that really caught my interest because of the variety of ways we could do things and how quickly it was growing and developing. And then especially just the great team. So I've been with them just about a year now and loving every second of it.
Oh, very, very cool. Well, listen, it's Women's Month, right? So, and you guys got a dynamic woman at the helm, and Deb Knoller. So I'd like for both you guys, tell us about Deb. What should the community know about her? Good, bad, indifferent. Let's hear it.
Oh, okay. So Deb is very dynamic. I would say that's number one, very dynamic. It's interesting because when you look at our company is extremely diverse. It's probably the most diverse company I've worked in this type of industry. Deb's our CEO. We have Sue Ellen, who's our CFO. We've got probably half of our company are made up of women like Rachel, engineers. So it's quite different. And all over the world too, we're like that. And so we seek out that type of diversity. We also seek out, people that fit within our culture, because it's pretty just go get them. And Deb is like that. It's a reflection of Deb. She's a go get them type of person. So, Rachel, what do you think? You want to add something to that conversation?
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially coming from our industry, it's rare to have that strong woman above. It's definitely something that caught my attention, and it kind of shows, especially for us younger engineers, that it is possible, that we do have that leadership and we can continue to learn from them.
No, it's very cool. Another thing too, Rachel, Kenny and I have for a while, and I think Gina, you've been part of this too, sort of realized that the dinosaurs like me and Kenny are all going to be retiring here pretty soon. And so we've really been on a mission to try and attract younger people into the industry. And, to our younger listeners out there, or maybe people that are on the bubble that might, be thinking about going into another industry, but they maybe see this video cast, what would you tell them about this industry and why should they consider this over doing something else?
Yeah, I can take that first. So I think there's just a lot of opportunity in our industry. We're kind of at the cusp of changing how we've done things for the last 30 years. And so while there's a lot of catchier and more attractive items right now, there's a lot of challenges and problem solving that we can bring to this industry. And I think that's going to turn into the different perspectives we need. We need a diverse group of people and perspectives to transform and figure out how we solve these problems. And so I hope that we can continue to grow that.
No, I think we will. And like I like to tell younger people is, the younger people I talk to are really concerned about the environment. And I think our industry is maybe one of the few you can have a direct effect on it. And then with using your software, for example, you could go to a party and you could say, how many trees today did you save? Because this is how many I saved, right? And hold up the data to support it. So
we do that.
Yeah.
We have, one thing that's really unique about Switch is it's very inclusive as far as everybody, everybody's kind of involved, has an opinion and so at our all hands meeting that we have, we show that. How much energy did we save? How much impact do we have on the environment? So.
Yeah, so we met Deb at Realcomm IvyCon many years ago, and we watched her develop switch automation, and it's grown. And now that you're coming onto Control Trends, I mean, you guys are really making a move in the market. How exactly do you go to market?
So traditionally, it's been direct through owner enterprise or owners of enterprise, multi-building owners, operators, that type of thing. And we're a very mission-driven company, so that's been why we've been able to attract such talent like Rachel. They're that group, they're looking for something that's mission driven. So predominantly Switch is on that mission to decarbonize buildings, to make the planet more sustainable. And we typically have a lot of customers, that's their mission as well. So it's kind of fits right in there.
Well, I want to hop on with that, Gina, because you are a marketing whiz, and you and I talk a lot of marketing and stuff like that. And when I went to your website, it really impressed me. The first thing you guys talk about is low carbon footprints. And if you keep reading about that, it sort of gets back. There's a statement in there about brand. And I'd like for both you guys to sort of comment on your opinion on, having a low carbon footprint. I mean, does that make your building more valuable? Does it make your brand more valuable? If so, why? Okay,
Rachel, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I was going to say more and more, especially with COVID and us having to work at home, it became very obvious which buildings and which companies were focused on decreasing their energy consumption. You could walk downtown. I live in downtown Denver, and you could see which buildings still had their lights running 24/7, even though they were unoccupied. And it did make you take a step back and be like, why are you operating that way? What efforts are you doing? Yes, you say you're focused on a net zero energy goal by 2030, but it doesn't look like that in your appearance here. So it really made you think about what they were actually doing to implement that and what was just marketing to attract our business still.
Well said.
Yeah, very well said. But, go ahead, Gina.
So I'm going to add to that. I think it will be synonymous with the brand. Okay. I do think that. I think there's a bit of course, everybody wants to do right by the planet. I mean, we all have to do our part. I think it does have something to do with the type of brand that you are as a company. I mean, for instance, like organic food, pesticide free, buying clothes or products that aren't made in, by child labor, or buying things that aren't tested on animals. I mean, there are certain brands that are known for that. So hopefully one day people are going to be shopping we're buying or affiliating with companies that are, say, I'm sustainable, I give back.
No question about that. I
Yeah.
agree 100. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too, Kenny. And I think we've actually seen studies where, buildings that, because it's doing it, like Rachel said, very good point, Rachel. One of it is you got to be doing it, but secondly, you got to be showing people how you're doing it, right? As
Show, don't tell, yeah.
Ken's great-great-grandfather, Buckminster Fuller Smyers used to say, in God we trust and all else against data, right? But we've actually talked to people and seen studies where if you do have a sustainable building, you're able to show that via dashboards or whatever, that first of all, you're able to charge more per square foot and your tenants tend to stay longer, right? And it's interesting because before COVID, the debate was how do we get the young people to be willing to come into the building to even work because they wanted to work remotely, right? And and now it's going to be how do we get them to come back into the building? But so I think you guys are on the right track. How does your guys' product allow an owner to be able to show that, hey, we're doing our part in terms of the environment?
Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, so I want to make one point there is if you think kind of back to the LEED trend, everyone had this plaque that they could show and everyone, you could charge higher rents because you had that plaque. But now it's the same concept of what are you showing me in real time that proves that you are doing that? It's not just this one-time rating. And so that's where we're looking for dashboards that our platform can provide. And more of this data is coming from so many different systems. And so how do you bring that all together to show not just the transportation carbon footprint that our company has and our employees increasing to, but also how the building's operating? What is the consumption from the light? What is the consumption from your building automation system and your equipment? And are you installing the most efficient equipment? Or are you installing the ones that's the cheapest? Like, how are you as a company focusing on that? And then bringing all that data together. And it's not just an energy question, but especially now it's a health question. And so showing all these in different dashboards that I, as a tenant, can walk into the building and say, yes, I feel safe. I can see the carbon footprint and our effort to reduce that is really where the power of Switch comes into.
Very
well said.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the corporate culture that you're talking about, Eric, and the attitude that you have, and you could say it, but if you display it, it has a much greater impact. But to your point about the
hang on a second, Kenny, did you just say if you can show it, if you can say it, if you display it, if you can say that again? This needs to be a quote. Kenny is a wordsmith, just so you guys know.
Cool.
Do it again, Kenny. What do you say? What do you say, Gina?
He said if you say it, you should display it or something like that. It's really cool, Ken. That's really awesome.
No, it is great. Well, he used to write Muhammad Ali's lines back before the big fights.
No. Again, the lead plaque got me thinking there because I remember the green screen was a big problem for us at first because we didn't know how to do it. We did not know how to take all those metrics and put them on the display. But if you had it, that gave you additional lead points. But I'm on your website and I'm seeing how you talk about a journey to the digital low carbon building being a process of discover, ingest, host, configure, applications, and control. Well, I think this takes it to the next level. I mean, we're talking about automated demand response here. We're talking if you have that information, that data available, you can feed it into the right places. And then in its highest form, it becomes that smart city that we're all kind of dreaming about. But it all makes sense now how you do it. But tell us more about that digital journey.
So before we get to that, the one thing you're about your, if you're going to say it, display it. And that's one of the things about Switch in the platform. You can develop your own, what we call workspace or application dashboard user interface. And that's all real-time data. And you can customize that to whatever it is that you're trying to show. Like I said, internally for us, we show all the time, real time, our impact on the environment. What's our energy saved? What's our, what have we done as a company? We share that. And so companies that are customers of Switch can also create those types of things. So they can display it. So they can say it and they can display it. And we just kind of help them do both.
Yeah. So Kenny, we need to come, because the other thing I think that leads to really and truly is, you hear about this in all types of businesses, benchmarking, right? What are you going to benchmark against? So Kenny, come up with a cool saying about if you can't benchmark it, we got something wrong with benchmark to go with this phrase. But yeah, so you guys do benchmarking, right? You guys do diagnostics.
Yeah.
But But I think the thing that I'm getting is it's just a really easy tool to implement. It doesn't matter whether you have a Honeywell system, a Johnson system, an
True.
Andover system, or whatever, right? You can just pull
Yeah.
in and overlay it, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's part of it. And actually where we typically start, so we use a combination. We have an appliance called our Digital Device Discovery. So that's usually where we start.
No. Talk about that. That don't gloss over that. That's cool.
Okay.
So in other words, I'm in the building and I want to put to your system. Are you saying you got something that goes out and discovers the devices?
Yes. So you can,
No way.
Yeah. So you can put in the appliance, and it will tell you what's there, what Bacnet, what Modbus, devices that you have on that system, and it tells you a whole lot of things. But that's typically where we start with that digital device discovery. We call it DX Cube. And yeah.
Wait a minute. You got to show us that. You can show us that at some point in time?
So Rachel is actually the product owner. And so she's intimately familiar with the DX Cube. That's her product, actually, her product. And so she can
finish your thought, and then Rachel, we're definitely going to ask you about DX.
Yeah.
Finish your thought there, Gina. I'm sorry.
Okay, so no problem. So with DX Cube, that's where you kind of start, and the DX Cube can be used for many different things. When you see it, then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna ask you guys where you see the many plays for this DX Cube. But I mean, it's really the start of that journey, that path. So know what you have in the building. Once you know if it's appropriate for what you're trying to do, design, renovation, whatever. And that's the start of it.
Okay.
And we actually have a newer version of DX Cube coming out that's a lot more robust. So with that, I won't say any more. I don't want to steal Rachel's thunder.
Rachel, I got to ask you. Okay, so walk us through it. So first of all, how did you guys even decide to come up with DX Cubed, and sort of walk us through who had the idea, how the product developed, and then can you show it to us actually?
Yeah, so I can show you guys, but I'll answer that first question first.
Perfect.
So Deb was actually, I think probably at a happy hour with one of our clients. And the first question that came to mind was, what is actually in my building? A lot of the pilots that we see, or a lot of these digital journeys, they're planned and they're started without actually knowing what's there. And that becomes very difficult to deliver on the value, especially when you have a 6-month pilot. We all know there's sometimes networking challenges or device integration issues. And so being able to assess that ahead of time really sets expectations. But then I think the second use case is kind of, as you're going through a new construction, are you seeing everything and are you validating along the way? And so it can help with some of those fixes that need to happen while you're still on site. So kind of the two use cases there, and I can dive in and show you guys a demo of what we have, and then also kind of where we're going in the next few weeks.
Ah, sweet. Okay, so let's do the screen. Oh, go ahead.
So before you guys go there, I just want to say, I don't know how many times has someone come to you and said, we need you, we're responding to an RFP or something like that, and we need your help. And it's very loose because no one's really done a full site audit, a site assessment. You don't know what the heck's in there. You don't know what it's looking like. So when you see this, I mean, it's multiple different ways, but predominantly it helps different things in our industry to accomplish different things. But yeah, this is actually, when Deb and I were talking before I came on board with Switch Automation, I said, hey, can I see your product? And I said, because that's very important to me. And so they showed me, DX Cube. I said, okay, I like this. I like this a lot. And this is actually the product that got me like very wound up. I was like, I got to know more about this product. So Rachel.
Cool.
This is what we call our digital audit, and it's just to help understand network health, your smart building readiness, or kind of what different systems are on there, firmware versions, and then potential vulnerabilities. So I'll kind of drill down into each of these. This is our local office here in Denver called the Alliance Center, and so they've been kind enough to let us highlight their building, especially with their goals to be net zero and all they're doing there. So first is this network health. So what we're really doing here is trying to understand how quickly the controllers are responding. And this is really important for running analytics and doing higher level control, because if the controllers aren't responding quickly, that's where you tend to see the drop off. And especially if all of those are on a network, do you need to do a network upgrade to really be part of that smart building journey? So it allows us to drill down, see it by manufacturer, if we can get equipment model information, and then the response time, as well as the IP address. So helping to just kind of give a high level overview of what that network health is from the beginning. Next, we're starting to look at what we call the smart building readiness. We're actually turning this kind of into your digital readiness integration capabilities, because there are so many smart building scores out there. This is just our recommendation on how you can integrate, or how ready you are to integrate and bring these systems online. But we can see here that we have audiovisual devices on the network. We have building management devices, so our IoT gateway. We have automated logic, as well as JCI in this building. And then we have some network devices, so Cisco servers and Dell computers. So it gives us a kind of an overview, not just of the building management systems, but also of your network devices, your audiovisual devices. And how we're doing this is we first do an IP level scan, so understand all of those, and from lookups you can understand what the manufacturer is. But then we go into the granularity of running protocol device discovery. So we're understanding what Bacnet systems are there, what Modbus systems are there, and just relying on our drivers that we've pre-built as part of our software solution. Another key piece, and this kind of starts to touch into the cybersecurity that we're hearing more and more about in the market, but firmware versions. Firmware tells us firmware is one way we can see that we're up to the latest security patch. So you want to make sure you have firmware unity across your devices. So here we can see that we do. All of them have one. We can drill down, but we find that on larger sites, we're actually seeing up to even 10 different firmware versions on the same controller. So it allows the integrators to quickly address that, but also the site teams to work with their vendors when they come back out to site and have that updated to the latest version. So just kind of communication and clarity there. And I know something that is a challenge is the ability to update these. It's usually a manual process, one at a time. And so even just an overview like this can allow that to be done. And then the last is potential vulnerabilities. So we're following the IANA organization set standards for what the ports are and what the protocols are. So we traditionally hear Bacnet 47808, Modbus 502, et cetera. So that's where we get this known and unknown from. But then also we, from that information, can know whether some of these ports are secure. So here we can see Microsoft Active Directory is a secure known port. But this really becomes important when we start to look at integration. So for example, if we have an automated logic system and we're communicating Bacnet, we'd expect to see 47808 open. And so we can search here 47808. We can see all of our mechanical system manufacturers and models do have that open, but we also have the ability to do the inverse of that. Not contains 47808. And if we do then find, for example, this automated logic controller, if we had expected this equipment model to be open, that would raise a flag and allow us to understand that this is the case. So we've seen this on some big sites. We deployed our fault detection, shared the information with the site, and they asked about their central plant equipment. And we came in here and we realized that the 47808 port wasn't open. They went back to the vendor as they had expected Bacnet IP to be available as part of that integration, and they then had to rebuild the contract to expose that data. So this can help catch it ahead of time and allow us to use it in that way.
Rachel, a question at this point. So you'd mentioned that there's like a 6-month pilot challenge where you're going to go into a building or multiple buildings, and you've got to make sure it's ready for you to be able to do your magic here, right? So these are the tools that you can do a remote preliminary assessment of the status of the building and get started.
Exactly. Yeah. So this really allows us to understand up front what systems are there and figure out what logic and value there'll be. But then also we can review that with the site teams and say, is this what you're expecting? Did you expect to see other systems? And oftentimes they did expect to, or in the reverse case, we say we found all your audiovisual systems. Would you like us to also look at analytics or displaying that value? And they're like, oh, I didn't realize I had access to that on the network. So it really sets the stage for better defining the pilot, better defining the outcomes, and then understanding kind of what next steps are there. So it's more concrete rather than show us a smart building value in 6 months, because that's just too complex of a challenge.
The manufacturers, you have 22 there. So that would be all the manufacturers that exist inside that building on the network. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this is a smaller building. So there's 22 different manufacturers, 9 device models, and then 4,000, just over 4,000 data points. Yeah, so I wanted to highlight what's coming, because I think this is really going to be a big UI improvement, just to really give that quick value right away, and something that can easily be shared with clients. So if you're the integrator doing the work, you can review this and help see what's going on, but also it just helps it to be more interpretable. So you get that immediate value, but then also we're now starting to assess ongoing. So what was the comparison against last time? So here we can see your network performance is now looking specifically at whether your devices are offline, online, and if they're online, what's the speed? And we can compare that to last time. So it might be a tenant improvement project and we expect those devices to go offline. It might be an issue and now we need to go address it. So tracking that, and then now giving you kind of the green light or red light, like, are you digital ready from the integration perspective, or is there things that need to be done to improve over time? So really trying to highlight that. And again, you have the capabilities to drill down, see your systems, compare them to last time. And then again, also looking kind of at the ports. And in the case before, where we had highlighted that it might be an unknown port, if the site team and the security team review that and say it is true, you can actually acknowledge that. And so it will take it out of the ports that are currently exposed, so that count can go down, and ideally that would be a 0. So there's no action required from there. So just trying to make it a little more intuitive, figure out where the action is that needs to be taken to address it quickly.
What a great diagnostic tool. My goodness.
Well, so then this would really and truly give, credence. The metrics are there to really determine just how smart your building is. And then if it was a smart building, then you could give them some kind of a, leads equivalent that they really truly do have a smart building, because they've got this going beyond building automation, going beyond HVAC. You're also bringing in your network status. You're bringing in your, devices that, again, so we're seeing now is that aggregation of all this information really coming to bear on one pane of glass, one single view. You can see all the above.
Kenny, the other thing that's really cool about this too, it seems like, if you're a building owner, give you a great tool to, sort of keep all your automation or your people that are working in your building accountable, right? You've got the benchmarks, you've got the data. Mm-hmm. God, it just seems like a great tool.
Yeah. So Eric, you're absolutely right. So that's the first, like I said, I mean, if you're a building owner and you're trying to do a renovation, this would be great to look at what you actually have, expose any vulnerabilities, fix those, go on. But then the other thing it can be used for is as-built commissioning. So coming around on the back end, as Rachel said, she said this one customer paid for this, and but they got something completely different. They got a closed port, or they got the wrong naming convention. And so this is how you kind of keep people honest. So you can use it from the front end and come around on the back end and use it that way as well. So there's a lot of flexibility. And I'm sorry, Ken. And one other thing is, if you're a commissioning agent, this is a great tool for you to have. If you're just wanting to do diagnostics, you can bring them in and create your own portfolio and bring in different types of buildings and evaluate them that way. So and this is actually the first step to that journey. The next one we're looking at, as you saw, Rachel shows you the point counts. So we start getting into the points, then we start tagging, normalizing, and then we're off, right? So, sorry, Ken, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
I'm impressed. The reason why the normal, we'll get to the tagging and normalization in a second here, but what to me now, it's like the Kelly Blue Book of buildings, this will actually, put the metrics in there that, could determine some true value or true, where you don't have the value that you thought you had because you got so much work to do and get things up to speed or whatever. But I think it's a great, almost like a tool to determine actual value.
No, I think so, Kenny. And I'm guessing I'm going to use this name, Fred Gordy. And for our audience that doesn't know, Fred Gordy is one of the big cybersecurity advocates in our industry. And Kenny, I would venture to say that this would be Fred Gordy approved as well, right? From a cybersecurity perspective, it looks like you can monitor the ports, and it looks like it's going to help keep your building cybersecure or more cybersecure as well. Agree or disagree?
Well, I think they probably.
It's a tool.
I would agree that it does. I think the cybersecurity that Fred works on is just solely cybersecurity. In other words, it's more.
What I'm saying though is he would not look at putting this tool in and go, well, you might be creating some more vulnerabilities here. I think he would approve from the fact that it's a tool.
Okay, I got you.
And it also allows you a level of diagnostics to see what ports are open and so on and so forth. So I think he would approve. I can't speak for you, Fred, but if you approve, reach out and comment and give us a thumbs up.
Rachel, I got a question on that integration opportunities. That sounds like a fun subject there. So that sounds like what our systems integrators would really and truly want to dig on right there, huh?
Yeah, so in that tile, we're really looking at all the different systems you would have and traditionally kind of how they communicate. So in mechanical, Bacnet's most popular, you have OPC, you have Modbus. So we're looking for those different protocols and just validating them. And that really gives you the insight to drill down and say, yes, it's ready. What are my issues? How many devices do I have? How many points do I have? Because that's really a framework for what analytics you can run, but also the difficulty of integrating. If you have a really low device count and you have a high point count, you're really going to need to start asking for what that mapping is, because it's typically a programmable controller versus the converse, where it's a pre-configured controller, smaller point counts, more typically for some of our VAVs or VSDs. And so it can kind of give you a little bit of insight into what that integration work is going to be and how that's ready to go.
Very cool.
You think that this can help drive people's choices of what they use, whether you're going to use those different field level controllers, supervisory controllers, or they're going to put everything on the IP, to put it on the network? Is that, in other words, we're seeing some trends happening, and the technologies that are becoming available are putting more visibility into it and actually trying to simplify something that's been kind of difficult, because it's been a proprietary positioning from day one. We had an architecture that was this high, and now it's been flattened out. Seems to me like this is going to help drive, an IP-based, building automation system and control system.
I would agree with you. I'm sorry. I would agree with you on that, Ken. I think that's going to do a lot for validating, number one, that customers are getting what they want, but also to show kind of the flexibility and the ease to which you can have access to some of these things, whereas before you wouldn't. But Rachel, what do you think?
I was going to say the same thing. And I think actually something interesting. So we've been using this tool for larger portfolios to kind of put into buckets. What are the quick to integrate, which are the simple ones, which require network integration or updates, and then which we're going to have a lot of integration challenges with, and what a better strategy is for it. But we've actually found that some we expected to have in that third bucket of a lot of integration challenges, we found that these integration protocols were available and actually eased the integration. So I think we can look at it in both ways of is it causing more difficulty, or is there a capability of a faster integration and more of those controllers coming to the IP base that enables that quicker integration?
Very cool. Let's talk about tagging for a minute. Do you guys use the Haystack, people that are over the Haystack tagging convention? Are you guys able to import those and use those as well?
Yeah, so once we start talking about tagging, we're really starting to jump into our other features of the platform. So I'll give a brief preview of builds, which is kind of all the data comes together. So as we talked about, we have a lot of flexibility in these different drivers. So here we have SQL, we have Bacnet, if we have an API, it all come here into this grid to allow that flexibility. So This is the typical Bacnet Discovery you're seeing. This site actually is very well defined. Usually this comes in as Object 1, Object 2, Object 3, all the nightmares we've been through. So to answer your question directly, we are flexible in using Haystack and Brick in digital Google standards. We really want that client to define that, or the integrator, because we want to follow their standards and just give them the toolkit to be able to do that. But where the power of our platform comes is once it's discovery, especially if we discover those tags, it's simply applying those. So whether it's copy and paste, this is built by your traditional engineer who loves loves Excel. So it gives us the same capability, same filtering. So equipment 1, equipment 2, so you can just select, deselect here, but you can also filter by typing it in. So if I just wanted VAV, and you can exclude. So it really gives you a lot of power in that capability. Gives you the flexibility, like I said, of copy paste, but then really the scalability comes from adding scripts. So I can come in here, assign, gives me the ability, we use JavaScript here, very easy to use, but I can say equipment type equals, and then I just type it in. And I can deploy it, whether I selected columns, all the filtered columns, and then I can also save this script. So if you have the same toolkit coming in, you can continually use that. And then I also mentioned when we were talking about DX cubed, that we can identify whether controllers are pre-configured or programmable. And so for those ones that are pre-configured, the point map has been defined. You can actually bring those in. And so if we have integrators who have templates they use, we're working to help define those and have those as other pre-configured templates specific to them, so that it eases this process altogether, because this is where a lot of the challenge comes in, is bringing it in, tagging it, normalizing it to allow the power of any other pieces of the platform. And so however we can ease this process as we move forward, this is where that data aggregation becomes powerful.
So that,
cool.
Just so I understand the explanation here. So you're also doing the normalization. So you could take you can take just about any protocol, like you said, or whatever, and then put it through your normalizing converter or whatever, and make that data useful. So I mean, it's very hard to explain to certain people, and I have a rough time myself because it seems so impossible to do, but yet you're doing it. So.
Yep, that's a perfect summary. And I think one thing also is worth mentioning. So I'm doing this at a site, but for our bigger portfolio clients, you can do it at the portfolio level at the same time. And so you can do all the VAVs across 40 plus buildings is the example we've done in a matter of hours, because it's just deploying those scripts, checking all the points, validating, and then importing them into our platform. And it's all through this same visualization, discovery, tagging, integration, and then importing to get that data to start posting. Well,
we've come a long way. Oof.
Yes, we have.
Rachel and Gina, this looks like a very marvelous, opportunity for some people to refocus their business into, getting into this data. I mean, a lot of people thought they were going to play in the analytic world. This looks to me like you're making it accessible that everybody can play in the data world and integrate it into their existing integrations, whether they're Honeywell or Johnson or Schneider Electric or whatever. Mm-hmm. This is a tool that just plays fair with everybody, plays nice with everything, and really enlivens the opportunity for an integrator or distributor to get into the data analytics world, right?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. So, if you're an owner, regardless, or an operator, regardless of the building, whatever. You've got this one place you can bring in all of that data from any system in whatever means, whether it's through DXCube or whether it's through API, whether it's through a file upload, you can bring in that data. And you can house that data there. And it's yours. Switch doesn't own it, vendors own operators, building owners own their own data. And it becomes a repository for you to name and tag that. And so you kind of start driving the show. I mean, it's a little bit like, I think a lot in this industry, we've gone around and it's been like we build it from the bottom up. And I think having something like Switch is saying, okay, this is my platform, and you need to bring, your systems, your devices, your equipment needs to work with this type of platform versus the other way around. And so it's kind of a shift, but it's a little bit like you wouldn't have a tire manufacturer say, okay, here's the tire, I want you to build the car around it, right? You wouldn't have that.
Good analogy.
Yeah, and so Switch is the same way, and it's very flexible. You're right, very agnostic. We just really don't care.
And it's also very scalable too, right,
Yeah,
Gina?
it's very scalable. So the one thing I like about it from an owner's perspective is you can just put all your data right here and have it normalized. You don't have to worry about anyone else doing it. Or if you're an integrator, you can use this as, hey, I can integrate I can normalize all the data in your system. So it's a different play. It's a kind of diversifying a little bit of their offering. So you can use it different types of ways. I mean, just having that one place. We were talking to the company in the UK, and they were actually, they were thinking of, we want a platform where we can build applications on top of it, and this type of application and that type of application. And they had all these wonderful, marvelous ideas, and it's a dream partner, right? But then we said, okay, before we get to building all these different applications on the platform, let's take you how we start. And we started at DX Cube, and we've had about 3 hours later, we're still on DX Cube with them, because once we showed it, they said, wait a second, this gives me a whole different idea here. Nice. And so I won't tell you their idea, okay? But then they're like, we'll talk about the rest later, but I have another idea. So it was refreshing, because you guys know, you've known me for a long time. It's all about diversifying, moving with the market. And if we can bring a product to you that you can see how it can enable your business to do something a little bit different or a little bit better, that's great. We've done a good job.
Well, excellent. And guys, I think we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg with you guys. Fair statement. So could we get you guys to come back on and keep us updated, tell us about some of the other products, and we want to track your success, and you guys are going to be very successful. So will you guys come back? Will you guys come back, please?
You guys, you know what? I mean, you guys can't keep me away, can Eric?
Well, listen. Well, thank God for that. And website people can reach you guys at
www.switchautomation.com.
That's good. And listen, Kenny, we haven't done this in a while, but I'm kind of feeling like we might have a couple of players here. They might want to play. Occasionally, we like to play on Control Talk now, a little game we called Let's Make a Deal. Gina, Rachel, are you willing to play Let's Make a Deal regarding DX Cubed? If so, what is the deal for our Control Trends audience?
So I would think anyone listening to this podcast, they get in touch with myself or Rachel, and we'll set aside a few devices for a few people and call us up. We'll give you a great beginner price on that, get you started.
Okay, and I'm the game show host of the industry here, so I need to translate that for you. The first 5 people that reach out to Gina or Rachel and say, Ken Smyers has great hair, get a special discount on a DX3, right? It's what better way to get started?
DX Cube, yeah.
DX Cube. So cool. Well, okay. Well, they can get you guys to the Switch Automation site, or is there a particular email address you want to reach out to you at?
I'm G Elliott, 2 L's, 2 T's at Switch Automation. Yeah.
2 L's, 2 T's. Okay, got it.
Yeah, your grandfather TS taught you well. So
he only had 1 L though, and 1 T.
So Gina had to teach him how to spell. I love that. All right, Rachel, Gina, thank you so much. Really, really, really appreciate you guys coming on the show today.
Okay.
And, all the best.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Well, Kenny, I'm super impressed. What about you?
Yes, I have to admit, we've had some great shows where we see some opening events where they're doing a pivot in their way to go to business, their way to go to market. And it's going to include some of the folks that we work with day in and day out. But it's all about data aggregation and access to the data and creating value. So part of that managed service team, you got to get on there, you got to have an ear for it, an eye for it, and stomach for it, because it's not going to go away. In fact, it will become probably the most predominant issue in building automation.
Well, in all industries, right? We hear, and I think maybe even some in our industry as well, you sort of hear, the data is the gold, man. Data is the new gold. And then the question becomes, who owns the data?
Right.
And boy, it sure seems like with what Rachel and Gina are coming up with. I mean, if you're an owner out there, you can get the data.
Right. Well, remember how we went to the cloud, and then they were thinking if it used the depends on whose cloud services, whether it's Microsoft or IBM or whatever. Once it got up there, it was theirs, and then they could sell it going back down the pipeline. But that certainly is a deviation from that flow, where it's all on board and local, and it belongs directly to the enterprise owner, and they could do what they want without paying double.
Well, we got a couple minutes here, so let's do a segue, man, because you and I have both been sort of tracking blockchain and crypto and stuff like that for a while. And oh my goodness, Kenny Smyers, there is a groundswell. I think you got to start paying attention to a company called Ethereum. And essentially, it's like Bitcoin, plus it has the ability to have smart contracts in it. So blockchain is all based off of stuff like Ethereum and stuff like that with the smart contracts. But what's happening, Kenny, is they're going to be able to communicate. I mean, so many people are going to be cut out because these smart contracts are immutable and they just get taken care of. And my question is, I'm sort of bringing this up for a reason. We alluded to it a couple of weeks ago. I think it's eventually going to take the internet over. But for example, artists now, like songwriters or whatever, I mean, if you had a piece of art or whatever, you could actually, through one of these blockchains, sell it to me, right? Money goes direct to your account. The asset goes to yours, especially if it's a digital asset like a music or a song or something like that. So I think we're going to see the whole music industry sort of overturned again, right? Because if you're an artist, you can create what they call a token or a coin, and you can sell it to anybody, and it just transfers assets. And I'm wondering how long before that sort of hits our industry. We sort of alluded to the fact a couple of weeks ago that maybe you have a smart actuator that has one of these blockchains in it, and it sort of begins to determine it's going to be bad in 3 weeks, and then it sends out a blockchain message to the distributor, and at the same time to the manufacturer to manufacture another one. And then all of a sudden, the actuator goes bad at the same time a new actuator arrives at the doorstep to be installed, right? And the funds automatically get transferred to the distributor. So it sounds like pie in the sky stuff. And when I first started following it and tracking it, I'm going, this is ridiculous, but it's here to stay. I mean, your banking industry is getting turned upside down. We just hadn't heard about it yet. Yeah. Real estate. I mean, real estate's definitely, that's where we first heard about it, right? At a Jim Young meeting where a lady from one of the big real estate companies was talking about how, that's how the smart contracts are going to be. You're not going to sign a lease and somebody's going to come collect the money or put it in the mail. No, the chains are going to talk, and funds are going to be deposited, and so on and so forth.
Right. And then all this superfluous, additional costs, whether it's a survey or, some sort of, anything that has to be proven time and time again, each time there's a transaction or sale, a lot of that information stays put this time. But, I was talking to a real estate agent.
Well, hang on a second. You said something really smart, and I got to sum this up. Superfluous, what do you say? Superfluous
transactions. I don't know.
Superfluous person, right? In the transactions to be cut out. So my daughter, went to school, and they said, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a superfluous person in the transaction, because look at it. You probably are too, and don't know it yet, right? So, so they made a comment about that. That's not going to happen that easily because legalities and because there are errors made, and you have to have the ability to correct errors. And whether it's a survey, whether it's rezoning or something, it's not quite that seamlessly doable. That there's going to be sticky ends to it. But I think for the most part, we talked about the soft assets in the industries that have the ability to just redo or make copies of what they've already done, and anything with software, any kind of those solutions that are API based and whatever. You make it once and you make it good, and you can sell it a zillion times. That's where everybody's moving towards. Yeah, but it's past API. Blockchain's a completely different animal. And when you say about that, once you get the smart contract in place, there's just no. There's when I say immutable, meaning there's just no questions about it. So your lawyers and people like that are, there's going to be no disputes. It's in there, right? And and then it's just executable behind the scenes. So it's, part of, like I said, it is pie in the sky, but every week they're making improvements on it. And it sounds a lot like our industry, right? Because you had all these different tokens that wouldn't talk. They quote unquote talk their own language or had their own programming. And now you got these other tokens that go on top that allow the different tokens to talk. So sound a lot like our industry, right? With Tritium and stuff like that. So, and the terminology, you could almost be having a conversation about smart buildings. You listen to them, they're talking about interoperability and all this kind of stuff. It's just an amazing world that is springing up. And these major companies are starting to invest in Bitcoin because Bitcoin is now considered an asset. You can borrow against Bitcoin. So people like Elon Musk are buying billions of it to put on their balance sheets. And it's here to stay.
Yeah, but again, it's going to, like, when you're talking, I'm thinking we just have issues with sales tax and, collecting it. Is there going to be a, national sales tax, or, how are we going to solve that?
Well, it already is. I mean, this was interesting because, one of the conversations early on was, well, the government will just shut it down. But now you got all these major companies and major firms and major banks that are now buying and trading with it. But no, the way it works is it's just like anything else. If you buy it and you sell it, they 1099 you. The government's going to get their tax on it, right?
Yeah.
So
well, as long as that, because I see it all the time where there's caveats and warnings about, do you have digital currency? Or even on your tax return now, they ask, it's a question, whether or not
Well, but that to me is an indication that it's here to stay. Because as long as they can tax it, they're probably okay with it.
Well, you don't see the day the governments will actually use Bitcoin to trade with each other, do you?
I think they already are. Miami, the mayor of Miami just went on something where they're buying and selling, not buying, they're not trading Bitcoin, but they're actually paying people with Bitcoin, and they're open to take Bitcoin as a payment. No, I think you're totally going to see that. So there's like a new breed of bank, right? That will actually, you can put your cryptocurrency there and they'll pay you 8 or 9% interest on it, right? Because they turn around and they're selling it to other people. And then you can borrow against crypto. So crypto is considered enough of an asset now. This is why I think it's here to stay. Crypto, specifically Bitcoin, not all crypto. So Bitcoin is a store of value, right? Which basically means it's like gold, right? So if you actually have Bitcoin, banks will take that. You can borrow against Bitcoin, which is why a lot of these companies are buying it, because they can keep it as a hard asset. So Bitcoin is like a store of value. Think of it as just digital gold, where these other things where you have blockchain involved, they have value, but they also allow functions probably by the next presidential election, my guess is you will be voting through a blockchain because it can't be messed with it. So will it all happen? I don't know. Will all the players that are playing now still be around? I don't know. I think this is going to be every bit as prevalent as you're looking at the early days of the internet, back when they're going, you got these dial-up modems and it's primarily the military is using it, and people are just kind of going, yeah. And now you've kind of got the first glimpses where people are going of the internet. Hey, we could do this, and this with it, right? So artist Mark Cuban, the guy from the Mavericks, he's a big guy because he says you can actually sell stuff through that, and like digital assets where you can continue to get paid. So your music right now, if you do music, I mean, once you get that out there, you're getting paid all the time. There's nobody taking a cut out of it. It's going directly to your bank account. So I don't know. It'd be interesting. And I bring it up partially because I'm interested in it, and it's our show, so we can talk about what we want to talk about. But secondly, because I think in some way, in some form, probably sooner than we think, it will be utilized in our industry.
It would have to be. I just don't. Again, there's the time factor, and there's push winds, or headwinds that won't let people do things quickly. Just like the tire industry, how they had solutions for tires that wouldn't get flat and wouldn't lose their tread, and it got bought, the technology got put in the shelf and said go away. And so I think a lot of things that could happen. It's an acceleration in acceptability. We know that the automated pilots, drones, have flown, landed millions of times now. Cars have driven millions of miles without any glitches or whatever. So we know the technology's there. It's not even worth debating it. It's proven. And then as the GPS is Mr. Musk taking care of our problem with the 5G issues. Now it's going to be even more, less pushback. But I have a friend that was a pilot, and he's telling me about the one pilot aircraft now because they just don't have enough pilots. Nobody's going to go into a profession like that knowing that there's a dead end ahead. So, but we'll half the people that fly get on a plane where they realize that there's only one pilot and the other guy's just there for decoration, or other person's in the co-pilot seat for decoration because the computer's flying the plane.
Yeah.
And so it's there. The technology's there. I'm sure different militaries are using it. I mean, the drones are taking off and landing.
Right.
Probably.
Kenny, confession time. I'm going to confess to our audience. I brought this up for one very specific reason. And the reason is Ken Sinclair has not brought this up yet. So we will actually be the first to have how, crypto and blockchain is going to affect our industry. Because he hadn't done that episode yet. But when he goes crypto and you, or he'll come up with some really cool saying.
I got you.
Say we were there first. So, all right, this is it. This is the episode. And I kind of bring it up too, because I'm just really inspired by Gina, Elliott, and Switch Automation, and Rachel, and what they're coming up with. I think it's just indicative of just how our technology is evolving in really elegant, seamless sort of ways.
Well, and I think the solutions are coming from the non-traditional vendors. Who would have thought this? 5 years ago or 3 years ago, even you said this. We go into your networks, scan them, get all your devices, collect all the MAC addresses, all the IP addresses, identify them. Make their protocols that may have been proprietary or not, or whatever. We can use some sort of a normalization program, and it's just wow. But I think these will be the things. These are the nuggets that are going to lure other people into our industry. This is the kind of activity. This is the kind of challenges that will attract future people, professionals into our industry versus going into programming something for some automation somewhere else. I think because of the building being spending 90% of your time inside of the building, and commercial real estate, whatever they've got to do, they're going to do it. Whether they're going to give away free movies inside of it, or give some sort of amenity that somebody else doesn't have, they're going to figure out a way to put people back in those buildings and make those buildings safe. And then making that data available that proves it's safe, just like that, we're talking about the green screen. Now we're going to have a health screen or indoor air quality screen, a building health screen. I mean, it is definitely coming. And, we've got to keep pushing people in the right way. When they're turning the wrong way and firing the cannons in the wrong direction, we need to make sure that the focus comes into, the narrowing of the funnel gets narrower and comes out to one interface.
Well, and I think you would agree, Kenny, and part of the reason, again, I brought up the crypto, not just to beat Ken Sinclair to the punch, is that, we don't know exactly which side it's going to come from. And, you and I for years have sort of hypothesized that, it's going to change, and it's probably going to come out of left field where nobody's expected it. So, but anyway, buddy, I think that's the end of that tirade. What do you say you and I continue our St. Patrick's Day celebration? I still haven't watched the virtual parade yet or drank the virtual green beer yet, but I'm all about doing that. What do you think?
Sounds like a good idea. It's still, once you give some of that Georgia sunshine up here, man, it's still too cold to be really fun outside. It's chilly.
That's what you got Zoom for, baby. That's what you got to get with the times, man.
We got to get out and just go.
Why go for real when you can go for virtual? All right, with that, Kenny Smyers, we'll call this one Cookies. A special thanks to Gina, Elliott, and Rachel Kennedy from Switch Automation, our great guests this week. Be sure to check out their special offer. Remember, reach out to Gina with the code Kenny Has Great Hair, and you could be one of the first 5 people to get a really special deal on their DX Cubed device. And Kenny, man, next week, man, be there or be square. So remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant, and buy some crypto this week.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed. Kenny Smyers. Oh, man. Look at that. Talk about what you want to talk about.